Yes, excellent. Oh no, you have no idea where we're going today. You have no idea.
Fun. So I just clicked record.
Okay, so did I. Like unknown pleasures and demise of just intellectual property, Disney's intellectual property. You have no idea the heights we will reach.
I'm giving you creative control, Nick. Just don't make me regret it.
I gave you very passive homework. Did you familiarize yourself with the movie Cars?
Yes.
Okay.
I watched a 8-minute YouTube summary
of Cars. Now, was it for all three movies, or was it just
Cars 1? Oh, Cars God.
1. Okay. All right. So, first of all,
not the entire Cars extended universe. Okay, I'm sorry.
There is a very extended universe, let me tell you.
I have not watched the Cars EU.
The Cars EU, which Disney did not chuck out the window because Disney's been at the helm the whole time. So,
Kathleen Kennedy at the helm.
Yeah. Let me, just preface this with, I'm a dad, so I watch children content. And my son is a little bit of an obsessive, like when he likes something right now, that's all we can watch. And we have our repertoire of cartoons. Generally, he's not like a TV show guy so much. He's much more of a long form, full length movie. So we have our 101 Dalmatians. We have our Lady and the Tramp. He loves stuff with dogs in it. So that's pretty much all we watch. But he also loves cars as a vehicle, like the thing Cars, but he loves the movie Cars, which he calls Buco because it's short for blue car, even though Lightning McQueen is red. But okay.
Yeah, Blueco.
Yeah, it makes sense if you're a toddler. So he's like, Daddy, Buco on, Daddy, and he yells at me until I put it on. So I've gotten a lot of Cars exposure over, I'd say, the last 2 months, 3 months, maybe 2.5 months. I've watched all three of them in length at breadth. I've watched the Cars on the Road Disney Plus series, which is great. It's actually very entertaining and nice. I've watched all of the one-off of that star Mater, the tow truck, that otherwise known as Larry the Cable Guy. So I've gotten my fill of Cars. And let me just tell you, I really enjoy the story, first and foremost. They're great stories. Cars 3 has one of the best messages for folks who are aging in their career ever. I will say, I think you could get a lot out of Cars 3 specifically, Chris. You yourself. Cars 3,
oh boy,
really great, really great movie. Cars 2 is okay, all right, and Cars 1 is phenomenal. I am very troubled by the world building in Cars. Most specifically, I'm very troubled by the cosmology of this all. So have you ever seen any, and I should have given this homework to you, have you seen any of the theories that all the Pixar movies are in the same universe?
I think I'm familiar with the idea broadly, but not specifically.
They're all definitely connected because they all reference each other in certain ways. Like the gas station company in Toy Story is also the gas station company in Cars, and they're like the main sponsor of the race cars and stuff like that. So there's a lot of parallels, but there's also like this themes, like you could probably go deep in a YouTube hole about Cars being in the same universe as Toy Story, being in the same universe as whatever. But Cars is kind of off on its own. It's almost like it's a multiverse of Pixar, because as you know, it's anthropomorphic cars, right? Like they're cars that are people.
Yeah.
And there are planes that are
That's
people.
One of the first things I noticed about it. Nick.
Yeah, so like you read, if you're like looking at a synopsis of Cars, you're like, Cars is set in a universe where cars are people.
Yeah,
so you got the
that
Cars.
was pretty clear. I knew. Yeah, I got that part.
Yeah. So there's some I have questions. All right. So there's a saying about like how hot it is at one of the events, and the race car announcer is like, it's hot, it's stickier than a leather seat on a hot summer day. If you are a car in a car universe where there are no humans, why do you have seats? Why do you have seats?
It's like part of your body.
Okay, but also your body, and I'm going to get into a theory for why I think all these. Here's a theory. I'm going to get.
Well, there's no point in having a passenger car, like without people.
Sorry, I'm troubled. I don't know if you can pick this up.
Guys,
I'm going to get to my.
If we had a video going, like Nick's face right now, it's like it's almost manic. Like it's.
I feel like I should be like chain smoking, and like I have like a cork board behind me with like felt, like the yarn, the red yarn everywhere. So I have a unified theory of cars that I'll get to, but okay. So the cars themselves have seats in them. Okay, why? There are no people. The planes don't have seats because the planes, like the passenger planes, hold other cars. Same with boats, like ferries and large boats that could fit a car. Like, so you're like, I am a person, a sentient being, sit inside me and go for a ride. Like, what? Also, okay, so cars don't have hands, right? So you don't have a hand, but like there's the car's world is almost identical to ours, other than the physical spaces that would normally fit a human being are sized to fit cars. So like City Hall, the courtroom in City Hall is big enough to fit a car, and it has like a jack where the judge like sits on top of everybody to like to do his ruling or whatever. Other things, like there's signage everywhere. There are obviously like they manipulate tools with their like tire hands, but they don't have hands. They gesticulate with their front tires like their arms. You see? And yet like they have like a very delicate internal, like in Cars 2, Mater goes to take a shit and okay, are you following me? A car is taking a shit, but he's leaking oil, but that's what indicates to him that he needs to take a shit. And he gets there, and it's like they're in Tokyo, and so it's a Japanese-style toilet. And just like, what is a car doing in a toilet? And it's like very fancy, right? It's like it talks to you, and you push buttons, it does different things. And it has like a bidet that sprays him from underneath in his like car butthole. But there's like very delicate machinery. Like how are you people manipulating the different switches? Now there are switches where it's like their tire hits the switch, right? So there's stuff like that. But like it's a delicate world that has like printing and signage and papers and pamphlets and details that like a universe with like beings that don't have hands couldn't do. Now, when there is fine motor work or you find, things that need to be manipulated, like they have these, like this race of beings that are like forklifts, but they look more like mini cars. So they're not like what you would picture a forklift looking like. It's like just a tiny one person car. And that's what they have in the universe. If they have a scene that needs to have somebody chopping something, like in Tokyo, there's a guy making sushi, which they have wasabi. Why do they have wasabi? What would a car do with wasabi? Okay. But if the guy making sushi has forklift arms for arms, why? And when in race, I'm troubled. I don't feel good. In the racing series, when they're racing, when they have to change the tires, the guy with the forklift arms holds an impact wrench. How are you hitting the trigger? I don't get it. Unless
this is disturbing. Yeah. Okay.
Unless these worlds are all connected, right? So the Pixar world is one Pixar extended universe. And we all know there's horrors in this universe, like an alternate dimension where monsters live, right? And they come into our lives and harvest our screams, which should scare you. Have you seen Monsters, Inc.?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it's about.
Oh.
This is real shit. This is heavy shit. Okay. We know the other horrors of the intricate workings of your brain from inside out, where there's little beings that control your emotions. We know that toys are alive. Okay? Untold horrors. I think there was at some point in the Pixar extended universe, there was an apocalyptic radioactive event where cars were the sole survivors, which kicked them all into sentienthood, right? And planes did the same thing, and boats did the same thing. Because there's another thing. How do they age? The town of Radiator Springs, which is kind of where most of Cars 1 takes place. The town of Radiator Springs was a victim of the interstate system, which would presumably happen in mid-century, like in the 1950s or whatnot. So the interstate comes through. People don't go down Route 66 anymore. They don't go through Radiator Springs. So Radiator Springs kind of withers and dies like a Rust Belt town. But like none of those cars age. None of those cars get more rusty. There's a lady that is the wife of the founder of the town, and she's a Model T. What? I don't get it. It's disturbing, Chris. It's not right.
I'm not
so far.
It's honestly too shocking for me to even
Yeah.
comprehend at a certain level. Like I'm disturbed.
He hasn't even gotten bad yet, Chris.
No, please.
There are adult jokes, adult themed jokes. So, Lightning McQueen, played by one of my favorite actors, Owen Wilson, has fans, and he has twin fans, which I think are supposed to be like a Mazda Miata. They're like tiny little, they're little convertibles, and they're women. They're girls. They're supposed to be girls, hopefully of age. And they are all adorned in his color of red. They have 95, which is his racing number. They have like Lightning McQueen stuff all over. They have like a head ornament stuff. And so they come up to him after the first race and they say, "Lightning, we love you." And then, how convertible cars have the retracting headlights. And so they both put their headlights up, and I think that is supposed to be like them flashing him.
Oh my God.
Because then he goes, "I love being me." So cars have car boobs, and they show them. And we're just supposed to be okay with that. Okay. There is a part where one of the cars is horny, and another car is making reference to something else happening off frame. And she says, "Is that what I think it is?" And she's like, "I don't know, but I'm going to find out." What is that supposed to mean? What is that?
How do cars make love? Like, that's a good question.
How do they make love? Do they procreate? There's a scene where instead of, how C-3PO says, "Thank the maker," instead it says, "Thank the manufacturer." So is there some kind of evil plant somewhere making all of these? I don't understand. I don't understand how the Model T works. She's very old. How do you die? How do you die in this universe? Several people die. They die of natural causes. But you're a car. You could seemingly live forever if you're maintained. You're a car. I have so many questions. Every time I watch it, I'm like, man, I'm enjoying this show. And it's a great message. But at the same time, it's like an eldritch horror. Anyway, I needed to share my concerns with you.
We need to go deeper.
Need to go deeper.
How far down does this pothole go?
And we're back, folks. I think that's probably where we put Plans of Flame in that. I know I was trying to build it up like it's some inappropriate thing for children / I'm really disturbed by it. I'm not actually, the spoilers, folks. I'm not actually really disturbed by Cars. I actually kind of love the Cars universe. It's one of the best parts of going to California Adventure at Disneyland is going to the Cars park. But I am continually surprised by the world building and the ideas that Pixar came up with that are slightly kind of disturbing if you understand that the only living beings are cars and other vehicles.
I think you could come up with a great clickbait video on YouTube that says, "Cars, is it safe for your kids?"
Yeah.
Like
Cars is turning your kids trans. For sure.
that
Transmission, that is.
Oh. I see what you did there.
Yeah. Anyway. How are you, Chris?
I'm good. I'm not as good now that I've had to be confronted with such disturbing thoughts.
Yeah, why?
I mean, I feel like
how
I've
does
been brought into your brain.
How does anyone?
And it's
go on
not
after
pretty.
learning this information?
Yeah, how do you sleep at night? How do you sleep? I wish I could go back to the time
in the
where I
back
didn't
of a
know this.
tractor trailer, just like in the movie Cars. Oh yeah, there's like a hotel. When you go to a hotel, like you can be a car that goes to a hotel, and when you get in the room, which obviously the door is made to be big enough for a car to go in the door, which like do you need? Why would you need that? You're a car. But they have headboards in the room. So they have a headboard but no beds. But also, in the first movie, Lightning McQueen is in his tractor trailer and they're getting passed by a minivan with a mattress tied to the roof. What do you need a mattress in the Cars universe for?
It does remind me a little bit of SpongeBob with all of the inconsistencies with the fact that they're underwater.
Well, the SpongeBob thing is that's where the nuclear tests happened in the Bikini Atoll. That
okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Now it all makes sense.
So that's why there's a sponge, a sentient sponge, and a sentient squirrel that lives underwater. So
That actually makes a lot of sense.
that's why I'm thinking like does Cars have something similar where it's like some kind of it's the alternate ending to Oppenheimer, really, is the Cars world.
And also the sponge is autistic, apparently. The voice actor for SpongeBob confirmed that SpongeBob is autistic.
It makes a lot of sense, I guess,
Yeah. So
Yeah.
there you go.
Interesting. Okay. Well, let's talk about Star Wars, I guess. And back to Star Wars.
And we're back to Star Wars. So Nick, what have you been watching? What have you been interested in the Star Wars universe that you wanted to talk about?
Just only the show that is ruining Star Wars for everyone, otherwise known as the Acolyte. Now here at Back to Star Wars, one of our, otherwise known as Star Wars Loose Cannon, one of our, I guess, mission statements is talking about things we love, things that get us going about Star Wars, things that get us going about post-apocalyptic hellscapes with sentient cars, and so
Civil Wars.
I don't want to be one of these guys that harps on the Acolyte and gives you just only the bad things. And I'm not going to do that. So I'm not going to only give you the bad things. It is a difficult watch. It is a show that would have benefited from being able to be binged. Let me tell you that. Because some of these episodes, if you had to wait a week, you might just never come back to it. Because you're just like, what the fuck are you doing? What is happening with this show? And you have to you really have to watch it with faith. Now, am I allowed to spoil you? Are you okay? Because you didn't watch it.
Yeah, so I was going to bring up, I just today watched most of the first episode.
Okay.
But I didn't think that would, I know we talked about how you kind of want to explain it to me.
Yes, I do.
Which I think would be therapeutic for you and educational
I think so.
for me.
Okay, but I can tell you the big points in it, right?
Yeah, I don't care about spoilers.
Okay, well, I'm going to get into the big one, which you probably have seen, is Darth Plagueis is in the end.
Oh, Okay,
So,
I think someone posted that online.
Yeah. So you've probably seen little pictures of a guy peeking out that looks really Plagueis-like from a cave. So this is the first time that we're seeing canon Darth Plagueis and not just hearing about him from, everyone's favorite meme source, the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise. So this is what my pitch to you, because one of the things that everyone thought this series was going to be, because it's set in the High Republic era, and it's sort of the downswing of the High Republic. The book series is the upswing and kind of the world building and the High Republic era. So the books and the comic books and all that are like the high period of the High Republic, and like we are entering in, which I would imagine if they renew this or do more TV IP for this is the decline of the High Republic into the times that we get to. And I thought like this will be a nice standalone, like we're going to get into, not everything needs to be connected in the Star Wars universe, right? It doesn't have to be the road to Skywalker or the road away from Skywalker, which I think The Mandalorian did a good job with, other than including Luke himself, did a good job with, like, this can be a standalone part of the universe that you never have to like involve yourself with the New Republic or whatnot.
They don't just like throw in like, and this guy was actually Anakin's dad.
Right. Yeah. Like Jesus, I hope not.
But what if they put in a Skywalker in it?
Yeah. This takes place 100 years before the Phantom Menace. So, with that being said,
100 years?
100 years before the Phantom Menace. So that being said, it is definitely not out on its own. Like this will tie into the grand narrative of what you see in the Phantom Menace. And that really hits home with seeing Darth Plagueis at the end. It's not like Darth Plagueis is like in the last 10 minutes. It's not the final sting, but it's a little bit of a stingy sting of like what's to come. The real final sting is seeing the back of Yoda's head, which, that's also caused some arguments, which I'm not going to get into, for do we need a final sting like that?
So the Yoda thing that's pretty exciting for Star Wars fans. I mean, just to see that. But I also am excited about something else, Nick, and that has been using Magic Mind for a couple of days consecutively. Have you heard of this drink, Nick? Have you heard of this?
I've heard
performance shot.
Yeah, you're making me more curious though. Oh, never mind. I have had 2 boxes of it already, so just kidding. I can't play like I haven't had it before. It's canon in loose canon / back to Star Wars that I of course know what Magic Mind is.
And so is the fact that you and I are both like caffeine coffee people. You maybe 3 or 4 pots of coffee a day.
Yeah.
For me, it's more.
I got my fancy like Nespresso now.
Yeah, but I the reason why this sponsor was Magic Mind has been awesome is because it's like a good way to extend that first cup of coffee or like that second cup of coffee wherever you might want to work it into your day. It has matcha and green tea in it, which actually extends the activation of caffeine, but also has a lot of vitamins and nutrients in it that are like really good for you for mental clarity and for having like cognitive benefits.
I like to feature a different, part of this mental performance shot whenever I talk about this. But I also like to pick out the ones I like to say out loud, which in this case is organic ashwagandha, which helps balance cortisol and supports stress reduction. And boy, howdy, does it ever for me do that.
Yeah, I actually noticed that if I have like... I'm like, what? I might be thinking, what's one more cup of coffee? That'll be fine. And then later on in the day, I'll feel like I feel kind of on edge.
Yeah,
and it's like
I got a caffeine headache the other day, Chris, and I hated it. Yeah. It was terrible. You know what doesn't give me a caffeine headache? Magic Mind.
Magic Mind, of course. Mm-hmm. Magic Mind. Yeah. So there's a lot of good things in it. I mean, I know you like the chlorophyll. I know you like the B vitamins and the L-theanine and turmeric, and they all have different benefits. For cognition, energy, and lessen stress, like we just talked about. They help with creativity and productivity, those are 2 things that you and I both need.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes me feel like a workhorse, you know, and in the way that you put the two things on the side of their face when you really want them to focus. You don't want them to look off to the side. Magic Mind is like those little things on the side of a horse's face. You know, that's what I like to think about it. And then I just run around in a dirt house, just like a. It
helps you not get spooked because otherwise you might get spooked if you see something outside.
If I see like a little mouse, and I might be like, oh, and then I can't like do my work. But like, no,
now with Magic Mind,
I get focused and I'm dialed in, and I run around in circles in my big house with the dirt floor.
So if you want to be just like us, like two cool guys drinking Magic Mind every day, or if you want to not be like us, either way, you should go to magicmind.com. Like honestly, I don't want to like. If people are like, no, I don't want to be like you. That's like I'm a little worried about that.
You can drink Magic Mind to be like us, or you can drink Magic Mind to not be like us. The choice is yours.
Whatever floats your boat.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, go to magicmind.com/Star Wars Trial and use the promo code Star Wars Trial at checkout to get a sample 3-pack of Magic Mind, and I promise you guys won't regret trying it out.
Beautiful. It's beautiful. I'm patiently waiting for my next box. By patiently waiting, I mean I am putting my blinders on and I'm stalking the mail guy until he gives it to me.
Magically.
Yep. Anyway, you don't have to do that. So, okay, we were talking about stingers. We were talking about
Yoda being introduced, Sidious being introduced.
Yeah. Yes,
those are
Sidious
big. Those are big moves. Those
Plagueis.
are like
Plagueis.
Yeah, it's not Sidious. We've had a lot of Sidious already, haven't we?
Yeah.
But yeah, so Plagueis and Yoda, like those are just like, man, what do you think it took? Sorry, I don't want to interrupt your flow, but if I might just ask you real quick, like, what do you think it took to get like Lucas Group to, the people pitching the show, like, what do you think the negotiations were like? Hey, we want to bring in these, Yoda. They're like, okay, maybe. And they're like, and Plagueis? And they're like, whoa, like, hey, no.
I thought you're trying, like, almost saying like Plagueis was an actor. Like, what do you think it took to get him out of retirement? Like, man, you can't get him out of bed for less than a cool 20
like it's
million,
Alec Guinness.
Yeah, like how'd you think they got that cameo? Yeah, it sounded like that. Well, it's almost so I wonder what the pitch.
But it is like that, Nick. But in the canon world, like the people who protect the canon are like, oh, you think
you're doing the Plagueis, huh? So there's so many ideas that burn bright in this show, and I would imagine so Leslie Headland is the showrunner for this. She is very open in interviews about her creative process and what she did with it. I'm going to say this: it is a really conceptually cool show, and I'm going to get the negatives out now, and we're just going to talk about the positives, and this is going to be me explaining to you why the cool things work. Because I just want to turn my brain off and like Star Wars. I'm not gonna get all weird about, oh man, there are women in this movie. Oh no, there's people that might be a they, them. I hate it. No, here, we're gonna get this out of the way. The writing, particularly the blocking of plot action and dialogue, is pretty piss poor. It's a fanfic. It feels like it's fanfic writing, and she apparently was a fan fiction writer in her prior life.
Follow your dreams, guys.
However, when it does work, it's because the actors are phenomenal. The actors in this are great. Like Manny Jacinto is the stranger, who you're going to come to learn to find out pretty soon. I don't want to spoil the stranger for you. I'll tell you plot points about him, but I'm not going to tell you what he looks like because he's amazing.
On the acting front, I just wanted to talk about what I saw from the first episode a little bit. I noticed that there were I was like, okay, the main character, the main girl who's introduced, I was like, she seems really talented. And then there and then there are some other good high tier actors, and then you see some other people that get in there, and you're like, yeah, it's like a TV actor, I can kind of see that, but Yeah, I noticed that there were some good performances too.
And I thought, how funny that they got us in with what's her name, Carrie. She was Trinity from the Matrix. They got us in with Trinity from the Matrix and then killed her in the first 5 minutes.
Yeah, that's a bait and switch a little bit.
She's in. She's
a really good actress, man. She's awesome.
There's a lot of back story, so you're gonna get more of her pretty soon. So don't worry about it. But man, I thought she was gonna be the carrier of the story.
Okay, the way you said that made me think that was that's all she is in the show, and I was
no,
wow.
No. You'll get more of her. And she's very, let's say, interesting. Then we have Master Soul, who is played by the actor who plays the main character in Squid Game.
Okay.
Did you recognize him?
I recognized him, yes. I've seen him before.
He's great. He is absolutely he carries this show, I will say. And he's such a good actor that he takes bad dialogue and makes it sound okay. That's how you know a good actor is a good actor, is taking fanfic and basically making it.
It's part of the
not
job.
Sound like fanfic.
You know?
Yeah. It's part of the acting job.
Acting job.
We have so I'm gonna get the negatives out of the way. Lee Jung Jae, by the way, is his name. He is a great Korean actor. Awesome in Squid Game. Awesome in this. Even if you don't understand Korean, in Squid Game, you could really read his emotions in how he talks, and he does it in this too. But he's speaking English in this. So we got kind of fanfic, some plot things that you're gonna watch some of these, and you're gonna be like, I don't even know what happened. How did this happen? Because you'll watch what happens on the screen, and you'll be like, and then you'll read a synopsis or listen to podcasts of people just I don't even remember that happening. But it did happen, and it's just they don't really nail home what you're supposed to take away from a scene, if that makes sense. Okay. I'm getting all that. Those are the negatives. And again, this would have been better if this was all available for streaming immediately. I think there were some the first 2 episodes are really great, so they aired those 2 together, and you wanted more at the end. But there were some weeks where I was like, oh, I have to go on with this. Holy shit. And when you're binging, that's not a thing. You're like, well, I'm just watching the next one. I'm not anticipating this another turd, right? So there are some very turd episodes followed by some great episodes. And when you have that, it's just better to just binge it, which you're in a privileged place. So you can do that because you're waiting till all of them are there. Yeah. There is one of the promises of the show that we were going to get the Sith point of view, and we do to an extent. And I imagine we're going to kind of go in that direction in the next season, where it's going to be a little bit more sympathetic to the bad guys. And the stranger is a bad guy. He does bad things. But you also, in an anti-hero type way, and almost like a Walter White type way, you kind of start to root for him a little bit, and you understand where he's coming from. And then you have these 2 institutions in the Sith and the Jedi where you sort of flip them in a way. And this is, I think, the beauty of this show, is we see the beginnings of the downfall of the ineptitude of the Jedi. And in a way, we're going to see them sort of, I guess, so think of the ineptitude of the Jedi in the prequels. They didn't see Sidious coming. They obviously didn't see the clones coming. They didn't even know that they were being built. But I hope this doesn't retcon it too hard, but this is going to put the machinations in motion of internal corruption. Mm-hmm. So we are seeing this is going to be the high heights of the Jedi Order being corrupted from within by themselves. And I think this is really key, is we are not seeing them corrupted by a Darth Sidious type figure, although that does happen obviously in the prequels, but they're the architects of their own demise in this era, and we're going to see that unfold, I think, over if they make more episodes of this. And obviously there's 100 years of downfall here. And we get to a point where they're space cops. They even say you're under arrest. Like they use that wordage. And then we're going to get to the era of the prequels that we know where they're a little bit kind of bumbling fools in a way, where they're just kind of, hey, we don't want to feel things, and we have this council, and you're not a Jedi master. We do not award you rank of master and that kind of shit.
Yeah.
And we get to see the groundwork laid for that kind of ineffectual bureaucracy.
Okay.
Thoughts so far?
So that's interesting. I didn't know that the show. Yeah, I feel like that's been ground that's starting to be covered in some of these novels.
Yeah.
As well, is there a connection there with this show and some of those High Republic novels? Are they trying to go into that to a certain extent? Or I don't know if you've read.
So I've noticed this has been Disney's MO with Star Wars and kind of to an extent with Marvel, where they want to reward you with Easter eggs if you've read the books, and you kind of do the Rick Dalton from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where you point at the screen and that whole meme where I recognize that.
Yep.
So there's a lot of that in the High Republic, but you don't need to know any of it, right? So this stuff is going to be explained to you. There are characters from the story, there's references from the story, but none of it is I guess to a fault some way, none of it is necessary. You don't need to have done all this homework and for you to get this. And I think some people that irks people the wrong way. It's like, well, I did there's a lot to read if you want to get up to the High Republic. I don't want to do all this homework and have it not pay off. It doesn't really pay off in this show. Okay. This show is kind of like, it's its own thing in a way.
I will say part of me doesn't want to let go of my Legends background on the fall of the Jedi and the Republic, High Republic era, and what I've read previously that led to it. I'm like, part of me is like, don't make me like.
You mean like the
aside.
Darth Plagueis book and all that, or
no? It's more. Although they don't necessarily conflict, because it's this book that I read. It's the Darth Bane trilogy. They like.
Oh, okay.
One of the things in the Darth Bane trilogy was that a big thing that happened was like they officially made the Jedi Order part of the government. So they said that, from now on, we're accountable to the Senate. As before, they were not like, we're not a part of the Republic. We're the Jedi, and we do what's right for the galaxy. But then they
that happens in this.
Okay. So that
they are the cops of the galaxy. They are literally the cops of the galaxy. ACAB.
Yeah, it's a good yeah, no, that in itself is a good conversation. Like just like what does it mean to like what is this? What role should they have, and what role do they have, and how does that change?
And this show is classified on Disney Plus as a mystery, by the way, and it is the mystery behind a cover-up that is completely and utterly orchestrated by the Jedi themselves. So you didn't get that far enough to see this, but essentially the events of the show are going to be a cover-up for what happened on Brendok. And what happened on Brendok will be unfolded to you in a very unsatisfying way. Unfortunately, that's one of the weakest episodes, is what actually happened on Brendok. But if you get past that, the efforts to cover it up and to you're going to see what happens with Vernestra Rowe, who is like kind of the preceding Jedi Master, and how they are sweeping the existence of the Sith under the rug, and how that's probably a bad idea. And it's a bad idea that doesn't come to fruition for another 100 years, but it is likely the downfall of the Jedi, beginning with this story. So I will say this is completely necessary Star Wars viewing, because if you want to see how we got to this place where we got into the prequels, where the leading force of good in the galaxy can just be overturned by one guy, here's how it starts.
Interesting. So like from like one guy, what do you mean by that? Like from the Jedi
From
side,
Darth Sidious, from Darth
Sith?
Sidious.
Okay. Yeah. How
Darth
we get to
Sidious
that
himself.
point? Yes.
Yeah, how do we get to the point where things could be so clouded in bureaucracy and following the rules, being a Mace Windu style rule follower? How can we get so burdened by being unburdened, right? So they're so into, and there's, one of the best quotes I've ever heard in a Star Wars ever is a senator confronting like the head Jedi. And he says, you pretend to control the uncontrollable. And she says, we do not control the Force. It's like, no, your emotions. You think that you are going around this galaxy being space cops and that you are completely removed and passionless until one of you snaps and becomes basically a galaxy-wide horror for all of us. Yeah. And it's like one of the most prescient things. Like the series is worth it. And that's in the very last episode, by the way. The series is worth it just to get to that. To like have this like really cool synopsis of you fucking religious freaks are going to form, like you're going to be the death of all of us. And no one else in the galaxy sees this because they all think you're heroes, but I'm here to expose you for the like flawed people that you are.
Do you think that
it's
there's
so cool.
Too much emphasis on the problems with the Jedi, or do you think it's like interesting and compelling that they go into like what's so wrong with them fundamentally?
It's a good question, and I think they take great pains in not being, hey, the Jedi are actually the bad guys here. Like that's not the thing. It's like from a certain point of view, the Jedi are bad. That's not what she's doing with the show. I think it's more of a showing human individual flaws within a system that also is made up of humans who make mistakes. And there are, you've heard the saying that the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Right.
That's essentially about this show, right? So all of these people that get caught up in the scandal had great intentions and they just fuck it up with their flawed human emotions. And it's the suppression of those emotions, the need to try to forget about them and to try to cover it up, that is the bad part. And I think one of the main things, and you can take what you will out of the show, but I think one of the overarching premises is no institution is perfect. No institution is the good guy, quote unquote, or the bad guy, right? I think all institutions are made up of people who do bad things and good things. And at the same time, these institutions with the individual people in them have the ability to have compassion and also do unspeakable horrors. And I think they do them in the name of function, in the name of the bureaucracy, and this is what we've always done for the greater good. But then also, remember in Obi-Wan, when I told you what's the main takeaway from Obi-Wan, and it is you don't have to keep going. You can stop at any time.
Yeah.
Because that's one of the big flaws of Star Wars is like, I'm a bad guy doing bad things, and now I can't not do bad things. And another parallel to this, it's my wife talks about this all the time. Just because you had a cheat meal doesn't mean your next cheat meal needs to be, or your next meal needs to be bad too. You know how some people are like, well, I had a big old greasy cheeseburger and fries for lunch. I might as well just like eat a brownie and be a total piece of shit for the rest of the day. It's like, no, you can stop at any time. Just because you did one bad thing or did one thing that was irresponsible doesn't mean you have to continually be irresponsible. Like you can stop at any time and get back on the road of righteousness. And it's the same thing with Darth Vader. Like you could have just like owned up to things and you'd have a backlash, but you would ultimately heal stuff. I think that is the institutional error of the Jedi is they're gonna fuck up. There's going to be errors and you have to own up to them and deal with them in an open and transparent way. And of course, with political underpinnings, you can't, the fear is if I'm too transparent, then people aren't going to trust us anymore. The Senate isn't going to trust us anymore. And they're going to try to shut us down because we're making mistakes and doing bad things. Whereas, well, you still have to own up to them. Even though it might hurt your reputation, you have to own up to them. Because otherwise, the converse is worse. And it leads to the worst oppression ever, and one of the worst wars the galaxy's ever seen in the Clone Wars and the Galactic Civil War. Like, all of this repression could have just been avoided if you just owned up to mistakes.
Yeah, and as we know, like, no institution ever will ever do that, because that hurts their own personal importance.
Yep.
and power. I guess
nobody likes owning up to their fuck ups,
No, absolutely not.
But it's necessary.
And I guess one of my, this is sort of maybe more of a philosophical question, not directly related to Acolyte, but do you think part of the issue with the Jedi is that they consider themselves to be like the definition of good? Like,
yes.
We are good. We are not evil. Therefore,
and it might be a chicken and egg thing, because if you ask, excuse me, that's a little burp there. If you ask any of the individual Jedi, they're going to say, we do not own the Force. We do not own the light side. We are not like the purveyors of the good in the galaxy. But I think that also comes from the outside in, where it's just like, you should be the best of us because you're the galactic cops, right? You're the galactic religion, good guy cops of this universe. And I think it's a little bit of chicken and the egg. Are they the authority on good because everybody thinks they are, or because they say they are?
It's sort of, I feel like it's because they say they are, because they're saying that there's the Sith and then there's the Jedi, and the Sith are bad and we are good.
Yes.
So that's the answer. I mean, we're here to defeat evil because the Sith are evil, but then their mandate seems to go outside of that. It's whenever there's an issue or anything that, I don't know. Yeah. I don't understand how they decide how to get involved. And that's the part, that's where like the corruption comes involved. Like you were saying, it's like, okay, well, there's this planet out in this system and they're having this issue. Like, it could use a couple of Jedi Knights to like go in there and sort it out.
Yeah. And that this show does it. That is one of the best things that this show does, is show you that people are fallible. Everyone is capable of evil and everyone is capable of good. Even the Sith guy kind of is a good guy in a way. Like, he's caring in a strange roundabout way, even though like he kills a lot of people in the show, to be honest. I think it's a nice allegory for our times, because our times are very binary right now, and things are, you're with me and a good person, or you're not with me and you're a bad person. It's a little bit more of, we're all very complicated and nuanced, and I'm going to use oversimplifications because it's easier for me to understand. And I think this is like, well, the Jedi are hard to understand too, as well as other kooky religions, hokey religions.
You know, I was reading this old book, history book, and it's like written several decades ago, so it's not like in the current lexicon, but I know, like, it says in the book, like, whenever an issue starts to be given a moral valence, then it'll spiral out of control.
Yes.
So if there's an issue that like has veracity or like criticism to it, and you just say like, well, this is a good idea, like it could be helpful, or well, it's actually not very smart because of this, but then there's the next level, which is like, no, it's evil. This is evil. Yeah. If we do this, it's very, very bad. Or like, oh no, if we do this, it's like, it's very, very good. And whenever that gets introduced into the equation, that's when things start to get very like very spicy. Let's say, like, that's when things can get violent. And like, that's when things get very divisive, is when you start putting like a moral valence on things. And that's for sure what the Jedi and the Sith are. Like that's a moral battle. Like they think each side thinks the other side is not just like, well, you're just wrong about some of the facts. We just see things a little bit differently than you. But you go ahead and you can do your thing your way. No, it's like you're evil, and like I want to eradicate any sign of you.
Yep. When the in-between is harder, right? Because the in-between is people make mistakes and they're very damaging and they piss people off and they inspire people to do bad things as well, right? Like, because you want, the human nature of things is almost like tit for tat and eye for an eye, and you bomb our town, I bomb your town. And it is, I hate getting to this, but when you tighten your grip on something, it's when it slips through your fingers. So if you are going to become the world's authority on what is good, what's going to slip through your fingers is going to bite you and burn you. And you'll get to this at the very end of the series when this senator has, and he says it way more cogently than I remember, but it's one of you is going to flip out, and it's going to be a disaster for all of us. And think about Israel-Palestine, right? If you build a wall and you brutalize a people, you're going to create terror. Is terror good? Is that pain better or more righteous than anyone else's pain? No. But if there was a little bit more of a continuity between we're doing some bad things that we need to walk back. It's like, again, you don't have to keep going. You don't have to keep being a bastard. You can stop at any time, and you can undo the things that are in motion right now. Or you can dig in and just see how much worse it can get.
Yeah, or if like someone that is a part of the good guys, quote unquote, does something bad, well, it has to be covered up, and it has to be, we can't let that get out because we're the good guys. And if you mm-hmm. let that one bad thing that he did become the whole story, then you're stopping the good guys. So like anything that we do to like further the goals of our institution is fine at the end of the day because it's for the greater good.
Yep. We can't
Which is really dangerous.
Any
right?
dissent,
Yeah. If any member of our order does anything bad, well, oopsie, we need to just.
And I understand, and you'll see in this show too. You'll understand the sentiment. Like, you don't want these outside senators that might have a biased opinion about you. You don't want them infiltrating your ranks to tell you what to do. So, what do? Do you tell them in truth and tell them the bad things that are happening to you? Or do you cover things up and try to control narratives and sweep some bad things under the rug? The impulse is going to be to sweep some things under the rug.
And they've decided to play that game. Like, they decided to be part of it, of that system. They were like, we're an official part of it. So,
yep.
Like, the politics getting involved that's par for the course for what they decided to do with the order. They could have been like a third party or just like completely outside, but no, they wanted mm-hmm. to be like, they wanted to be the Galactic Cops.
Yep. 100%. So anyway, this show does not deserve, and just to wrap it up and take issue here, this show did not deserve any of the hate that it got. It is okay if you hate the show. It's fine. It's not for everybody. But like I feel like it got a lot of hate just out of nowhere, just obviously for many different reasons. And it is okay. Again, if you don't like the show, it's okay. You're not a bad Star Wars fan in my book. Like you did, the Book of Boba Fett wasn't for me for many reasons. But at the same time, it was a little clunky. So there are very valid concerns with the show. But overall, it moved the story in a new direction that was very refreshing, and it also, I think, it continued this theme of questioning your heroes, questioning the dogma in your life, and I think that started with The Last Jedi, right? Because questioning your heroes, no one questioned himself more than Luke Skywalker questioned himself. So it's this era of Star Wars being a little bit more inward looking is really nice, and this is worth a watch. You just
I think I'm gonna
have to get through
watching
some.
it.
You're gonna have to get through some turds to get there.
Okay, well that's gonna be hard because there's so much good TV that out there that like I don't have a lot of tolerance for anything that's subpar.
Yeah. But it's Star Wars. You kind of have to.
But it's Star Wars. You know, yeah, it is.
It's your job.
I kind of feel a little guilty that I haven't watched it already, but like when I'll admit, like
I kind of like that you didn't, so I could do this and kind of give you this framework for you. You know,
I'll admit, like why I didn't watch it was immediately the bad press that it got, like on my TikTok feed and on my Twitter feed. It just got ridiculed. And I know that's a reflection of me because that's the algorithms like showing me stuff that it thinks I'm going to like. So it's a feedback loop, right? So I'm aware of that though. I'm like, so I actually, a lot of times when I would be shown that stuff, like I wouldn't actually I would glance at it and then keep scrolling because I'm like, I just don't want to I don't get off on making fun of it like so many people do. Like they're making fun of it and they're like, oh, do you look at this scene? Like it's so bad. And like, I would try to see if I could see their point. But I'm like, well, I still haven't seen it, so I don't really, I don't know. But it's like you see that coming up a lot, and it does have an effect. So I think that's part of why I didn't see it.
And a lot of people let that paint other things with that broad brush, and instead of letting it breathe on its own. I think if you're somebody that thinks that quote unquote Disney is using forced diversity. Yeah, okay, you're not going to like this because there's people of color and women in it. All right, fine. But if you let that paint the picture of what you're seeing on screen, you're going to miss some good stuff. And you might have umbrage with that, but there's some really good acting in the show and there's some really cool ideas. You get to see live action, a bleeding of a lightsaber, and people made fun of that, which is funny because it was a fucking awesome scene and it completely fit with what was happening.
Yeah. And I'll say it was like that. Whenever I even get a sniff of some kind of agenda that might be in some sort of thing that I want to watch, it automatically just turns me off. And I don't sense that from the plot. I don't sense that from the writing.
No.
But casting is just as much a decision as anything else is. And it's not like I don't want to some of these people are very much good in their own right, which is why it's that's why it sucks, right? Because then there's people in it that are actually good and people think that, well, they were just in there for the forced diversity. And then I watch it myself and I'm like, I see real talent here, So you might not give them credit. I don't know. So I feel like that, and then some people might see it and not watch it. And I'm glad that I've watched it because I at least am seeing the good parts of it. But I'll admit that when I see every actor looks super young and they all kind of look they kind of look like a Gen Z.
Yeah, 100%.
A little bit. I'm it's this is a Gen Z Star Wars a little bit, which I'm okay, it's fine. I'm not Gen Z, and that's why it can be, or I'm not. Anyways, what were you gonna say?
However, I'm going to spoil this for you, but if you're annoyed by some of the hot Gen Z DEI hires, most of them get killed. So,
yeah, no, I mean that's So I'm going to watch it and maybe we can get back another episode and I'll have more of my, I'll actually tell you my thoughts on it other than just my perceptions.
There you go. Worth a shot, worth a watch. Has its own problems, but doesn't deserve nearly the amount of hate that it's got.
I would say that's probably true. I think at this point the momentum is already there for the hate. There's a hate train that is just looking for any chance.
They left the station.
Yeah, it's already running on steam at this point, and it's just looking for any chance that So don't let that necessarily deter you from watching it, especially if you're like us and you're sickos for Star Wars.
Yep, 100%.
Oh man, no, this is good talk. I mean, the cars thing, I had no idea you were gonna. That was fun. Like that was
Yep.
random as hell.
That's why I needed you to at least be aware of what happens in cars. You know.
Yeah, I actually am glad that I watched that video too, just because there's the cars is actually really in the culture. Like you will see a lot of material on the internet and like references made to it.
Especially if
even
you're
though
anywhere near kids.
Especially if you're
So.
anywhere near kids.
Yeah, I don't know if you're legally allowed to be near kids, Chris.
Not
but.
within 50 feet, but. Anyways, but we've been back. We've been Star Wars Loose Cannon. We've been back to Star Wars. And, of course, don't forget to check out Magic Mind. If you want to get like better energy in your day, better cognitive performance, just go to magicmind.com/Star Wars trial to get a sample 3-pack. But Nick, anything else from you before we sign off?
Hell yeah, brother.
Oh yeah, brother. Brother, watch some Acolyte, brother.
Yeah, brother.
All right, guys.
Sign as Loose Cannon's DEI hire. Here's Nick.
That's
I was
definitely Nick,
Oswald
guys.
signing off.
It was definitely Nick that was
Yep.
the hire.
Because I'm left-handed.
Hey, you're part of it. All right, guys.
Yeah.
We'll see y'all next time.
Bye.
Bye. Guys, go to magicmind.com/Star Wars trial and use the discount code Star Wars trial to get a sample 3-pack for free. Okay, so all right, guys, use the you go to Magic Mind